We all grew up hearing it. Think positive, keep your chin up, focus on the bright side. It sounds harmless, even noble. After all, why would anyone question the value of optimism? It's painted as a cure-all, a shield against hardship, the mindset that will carry you through anything. But here's a question no one really asks. What if positive thinking is actually keeping you from truly seeing your life? When Jiddu Krishnamurti spoke about the mind, he often warned us about escaping from what is. And positive thinking for many people is exactly that. An escape. Think about it. You feel anxious, lonely, frustrated. Instead of fully sitting with that discomfort, you rush to replace it with a positive thought. You tell yourself, it's fine. I just have to see the silver lining. In that moment, what's really happening? You've pushed the truth away. You've traded reality for a comforting illusion. And maybe it makes you feel better for a while. But the root of that anxiety, that frustration, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's like painting over rust. Sure, it looks good for a moment, but the corrosion underneath is still eating away at the metal. Krishnamurti would say, to transform your life, you must first see it as it is, without judgment, without escape. And positive thinking, when used as a crutch, blinds us to what's actually here. We live in a culture obsessed with self-improvement. Every bookstore, every podcast, every YouTube channel tells us, change your mindset and you'll change your life. But what if this constant effort to stay positive is a subtle form of violence against yourself? Because you're telling yourself, who I am right now is not okay. My current state is not acceptable. And so you create a battle inside your own mind. One part of you feels pain, fear, or sadness. The other part of you rushes in with bright-colored thoughts trying to cover it up. And the two sides fight endlessly. Have you noticed that forced positivity often makes you feel more tense, not less? It's because you're divided inside. You're trying to run away from one half of your experience. But here's the truth. You are that experience. You can't outrun yourself. When you avoid your pain with positive thinking, you rob yourself of the chance to understand it. And without understanding, there's no real change. You can't heal something you won't look at. Krishnamurti once said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Our society often tells us to be okay with things that are not okay, to smile through exploitation, to stay positive when we're being treated unfairly. But real freedom comes from seeing the facts, not from covering them up. If your house is on fire, the answer is not to close your eyes and imagine a beautiful garden. The answer is to deal with the fire. The problem is, most of us are afraid of what we'll find if we stop thinking positively. We believe that without the buffer of optimistic thoughts, we'll drown in negativity. But that fear is just another thought. And thoughts, positive or negative, are not reality. They are interpretations. Imagine you're walking by a lake at sunset. The water is still. The colors are breathtaking. But if your mind is busy labeling it, "This is so beautiful. I'm so lucky. What a perfect day," you're not fully with the lake. You're with your thoughts about the lake. Positive thoughts, yes, but still a layer of separation between you and the actual experience. Now apply that to your life. If you lose your job, the fact is, you've lost your job. That's reality. Everything else, it's okay, I'll be fine. Something better will come. Might be true, but it's still an interpretation layered on top. And if you cling to that interpretation without really facing the loss, the fear, the uncertainty, you'll never understand how your mind reacts to insecurity. And understanding is the only thing that can bring transformation. So this isn't about rejecting positivity. It's about not using it as a shield. There's a difference between seeing things clearly and then naturally feeling hope, versus manufacturing hope to avoid seeing things clearly. The danger is subtle, and that's why it's so powerful. Positive thinking can make you feel like you're growing, when in fact you're just decorating the walls of your mental prison. What Krishnamurti suggested was radical. Stop trying to change your thoughts. Stop trying to force your mind into a certain shape. Instead, just observe. Watch your mind the way you'd watch clouds drifting across the sky. No pushing them away, no pulling them closer, just watching. When you do that, something unexpected happens. The mind begins to quiet. The constant noise of stay positive or don't be negative loses its grip. And in that quiet, you start to see things as they really are. And when you see clearly, you don't need positive thinking. You don't need negative thinking either. You simply respond to life from a place of understanding. And that is far more powerful than any motivational slogan. When you look directly at your pain without trying to change it, something remarkable happens. You realize that the fear of feeling it was often worse than the feeling itself. Positive thinking tends to reinforce that fear. It whispers, "You can't handle the truth. You need me to make things bearable." And without even knowing it, you start depending on that mental sugar rush to get through the day. But sugar doesn't nourish you. It just masks your hunger for a while. When Krishnamurti talked about what is, he meant the raw, unfiltered reality of your inner and outer life. No sugarcoating, no denial. If you feel envy, you see envy. If you feel anger, you see anger. You don't label it bad. You don't try to replace it with gratitude or forgiveness just to avoid discomfort. You simply watch it as you would watch a storm pass through the sky. And here's the thing, storms end. Not because you force them to, but because all things change when you stop interfering. If you've ever tried to meditate while in a bad mood, you've probably felt that urge to shift into a better state. That's the habit of positive thinking again, the mind's reflex to escape. But meditation, in Krishnamurti's sense, isn't about escape. It's about staying with yourself completely, without resistance. Some people hear this and think it means wallowing in negativity. It doesn't. Wallowing is still a form of identification. You're clinging to the feeling, feeding it with more thoughts. Observation is different. It's seeing without clinging, without pushing away. Positive thinking, on the other hand, often becomes a way of clinging to an image. The image of the happy me, the confident me, the resilient me. And every time reality doesn't match that image, you feel like you failed. That's why so many people burn out on self-help. They try to maintain a mental posture of constant optimism, but life keeps intruding with things that hurt. And instead of truly learning from those moments, they double down on the mask. Krishnamurti called this the escape from fear through an idea. We don't want to deal with fear directly, so we cling to an idea, whether it's everything happens for a reason or good vibes only. The irony is, the moment you stop escaping, the fear often dissolves. You see it for what it is, a movement of thought projecting a future or replaying a past. Without the constant fuel of thought, fear can't sustain itself. This is where positive thinking can be most dangerous. It keeps thought running, keeps the mind busy, keeps you spinning stories, so you never meet silence. And without silence, you can't hear the deeper truths of your life. Look at your own experience. How many times have you told yourself something positive just to avoid feeling a certain way? How many times has that temporary relief prevented you from making a real change? If you're in a toxic job, positive thinking can make you stay longer than you should. If you're in an unhealthy relationship, it can convince you to endure instead of confront. Because the mantra in your head says, stay positive. Things will work out. But sometimes things won't work out unless you see clearly that they're broken. And you can't see that if you keep painting everything with the brush of optimism. The challenge here is subtle. It's not about rejecting positivity, just as it's not about embracing negativity. It's about stepping out of the polarity altogether. Krishnamurti would say, the mind that seeks comfort in ideas will never be free. And positive thinking, however well-intentioned, is still just an idea. When you notice this, when you see the habit as it's happening, that's the beginning of freedom. Freedom begins the moment you no longer need to protect yourself with a constant stream of good thoughts. When you drop the pressure to be positive, you also drop the resistance to what is. And without resistance, there is understanding. Without understanding, there's only reaction, swinging between hope and fear like a pendulum. Krishnamurti often spoke about choiceless awareness, the state of simply being aware, without picking sides. Not for optimism, not for pessimism, not for success, not for failure. Just seeing. This kind of awareness doesn't numb you, In fact, it makes you more alive. You begin to feel things directly, joy without clinging, pain without drowning. And because you're no longer editing reality to fit a mental picture, your response to life becomes intelligent, fresh, alive. Positive thinking promises safety. But in truth, safety doesn't come from thought. Thought is always old, built from past experiences, past fears, past desires. Real safety, if it exists at all, comes from meeting each moment as it is, without dragging the past into it. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind in your face. The mind wants to comment, "This is beautiful," or "This is scary." But there's another possibility, to simply feel the wind, hear the rush of the ocean, see the vastness without naming it. In that moment, there's no need to be positive or negative. There's just living. When you live this way, positive thinking isn't something you force. It's not a tool you pull out to hide from pain. Instead, a kind of natural lightness begins to appear. It's not artificial optimism. It's the clarity that comes when you stop running from yourself. Krishnamurti once said, "When you call yourself an Indian or a Muslim or a Christian or a European, you are being violent." Why? Because the label divides you from others. In the same way, when you call yourself positive or negative, you divide yourself from your own experience. And division is conflict. So the question is not, how can I think more positively? But can I live without needing my thoughts to be any particular way? If you can meet joy without clinging, and meet pain without resisting, you'll see something extraordinary. You don't need to manipulate your inner world to be at peace. And that peace isn't the result of effort. It's not the reward for years of self-improvement. It's what's left when the struggle to be positive ends. In that silence, life moves through you freely. And in that movement, you may find something far deeper than optimism. Something Krishnamurti would simply call freedom.